Welcome to the walkthrough of the Extrudalizer script. Here we will overview the basic operations and how to use it and how it works. So let's get started. Let's create a basic shape. Here's a square. However, when you create a square, it is a parametric shape. Right here you can control its dimensions, position, roundness, etc. So Extrudalizer doesn't work with parametric shapes. The shapes need to be Bezier shapes. So we need to right click, convert to Bezier path, and now this shape is ready for Extrudalizer. Well, not exactly ready because it's not centered. So you can still extrudalize it, but it's going to be easier if you will center it. So we can use this handy button, center shape path on layer origin, bam, and it is centered. Now it really is ready to be extrudalized. First we can select how it will look, whether it will have gradients on the front and back or solid colors, whether it's going to have solid colored sides or Lambert shaded sides or gradient shaded sides. Let's do solid color. Let's do Lambert shader. We do not need Bezier options here because there are no curves. And now we click Extrudalize. Yeah, and it's done. So here we have created the shape. Just quickly, let's go over what happened here. So first of all, a text layer, Extrudalizer Data layer is created. This contains all the expressions that calculate the positions of all the vertices of the extrudalized shape at any given frame of your animation. So by default, it's created shy, locked, and placed at the bottom of the stack. You cannot delete it because if you will, this will no longer work. Now, so let's go into the shape itself and go over what you can do with it. Here we have 3D transform controls where we can control the depths of extrusion. So by default, the shape is created facing you. So in order to see anything, you need to rotate it. So let's rotate the shape. Let's rotate it like this, and let's rotate it like this. And we can get rid of these blue outlines, and generally when you have more complex shape with more vertices, it will improve on-screen performance. But now we'll just disable it so we can see it better. So extrusion depth. Here, the shape is extruded thinner or thicker. Let's set it to 200. There we go. Now, the position controls the position of the extruded shape in 3D space, x-axis, y-axis, z-axis. Okay. Now, the orbit parameter, it controls how the shape orbits around the center being the red dot. So for example, right now when you orbit, it will look just like it's rotating around itself. However, if we will move it away from the center, for example here, when we orbit the shape, it rotates still around the center, not itself. So if you want the shape to rotate around itself when it's not in the center, you use pitch, roll, or yaw controls, which rotate the shape around its own origin. Here we are. So here we also have scale controls. So the scale controls the size of the front face or the back face, and you can go from 1% to 200%. For example, if you would like to create a pyramid, this is what you would use to do it. Here, it is a pyramid now. If we rotate it, you will see, here you go, a pyramid. So those are the position and scale controls, as well as the extrusion depth. Okay, let's just reset this. Here we go. Now let's get into the appearance. Okay, this option it's very self-explanatory, hides the anchor point. Wireframe mode will hide all the sides and will display only the edges of the shape. However, in order to see it, you need to have some stroke width. Here, let's set it to stroke width, click wireframe, and now we have a wireframe. And if we rotate it, we have a cool looking rotating wireframe. Translucency mode will make all the sides semi-transparent. Now we can get into more granular control of the front and the back of the shape. So here, by default, the back is blue. We can set it to any color we like. We haven't done front and back gradients, so these controls are not active right now. Here we can also set the transparency of the front face. However, due to how Extrudalizer works, in order to save on resources, whatever sides are not visible currently, they're not drawn. So when we turn off opacity of the front, that's why we cannot see the hidden sides. But for example, if we toggle translucency a little bit, we will see the sides. There they are. Because translucency will make sure that all the sides are visible. So for the front, the controls are identical to the back. We have colors, we have its opacity. In order to get a different look, you need to re-extrudalize the shape with the new Pre-Extrudalization options. Here we want front back gradients, and let's say we want side gradients. We click Re-Extrudalize, and here it tells you that if you by chance animated anything in your layer controller, it will not be affected. Here, so you see now we have a gradient. One thing that is important to note: in order to set up the gradient, it's better to move the shape to the 0, 0 rotation position, so it's looking straight at you. Then we can use these controls in order to set up the start and end point of the gradient. So for example, for the start point, let's place it right here. And the end point, let's say I want to go right here. So now we have a very nice gradient. And also, if we want to rotate it, we can just rotate it like this using this controller, and we have the same kind of control for the back. Now let's get to the side appearance. Let's rotate the shape a little bit so the sides are visible. Here we are, we have the sides and we have side gradients. To change the side gradient color, we just change this color. Due to some limitations of how After Effects works, we cannot set an actual gradient. So actually what you're seeing here is a solid blue side color with a black and white gradient overlaid on top. And we can control its opacity. So for example, if we go all the way 100% opacity, here you see it black and white. But when we make it less, we can control sort of the darkness and the look of this. We can likewise change the length of the gradient. Currently the gradient starts here and goes here. And we can change its length by using this parameter, or we can rotate all the side gradients at once if we so choose. So those are the appearance options. Now let's get to the last tab, parenting data. You don't really need to use it unless you want to, but for example, if you parent something to the front or the back face, this will basically turn off the opacity of something, of the parented layer, if you parent its opacity to this property, when the back is visible or the front invisible. It basically toggles between 100 and 0%. So for example, right now we have the front visible, but if we rotate it to the position where it is invisible, it flipped. So if you enable this option and this option, this will calculate the bounding box for these properties. This data is used when you do art mapping or if you want to parent something somewhere. But you also don't really need to use it because there are better options available. And we'll go through them right now. So for example, if I would like to parent something to a particular corner or the middle of the face or anywhere on the shape, I can use this tool, Null for Vertex Parenting. If I select the layer I want to parent to and click this button, it creates a null, which is called Vertex Parent 1, for example, and it has several options. Let's turn it back on so it will become visible. So by default, it's parented to the first vertex, which is 0 on the front. So if we want, we can change it to middle, which will be the middle between front and back, or on the back face. Or we can also change which vertex it's parented to. And this way we can parent a layer that will stick to this particular corner. For example, if I want this shape to be parented to this corner and move through all the rotations and manipulations, I can simply parent this layer to this null and it will follow any transformations that I may apply to the layer. So a slightly more advanced trick is if, let's say, I want to find the middle of any given face. So in order to do this, I need to calculate the difference between the positions of two vertices. So by default, we just have one vertex parent. But if we select the null, the actual vertex parent, and click this button again, we're given a second parent. So let's say I want to find the position in the middle of the front face, right? So what we'll do is this. Let's look at the front face. Here's the front. Great. Now let's go to the vertex and we say we want to position it on the front vertex 1, And then let's do front vertex 2, vertex 3 rather. We need the opposite side. So we have 2 coordinates here. Now in the transform it just reads out 1, but if we edit this and say effect 1 plus effect 2, which is the second vertex parent, and then we divide it by 2, it will give us the middle between this point and this point. And now we have a null parented to the center of the face. And of course it follows all the transformations. So now let's get to some more advanced options about optimization, baking, side colors, and mapping artwork. So if I have animated this shape, let's say going through a bunch of rotations, for 2 seconds, and it rotated like this, and it rotated like that, and let's say this is a beautiful animation. Now, if we want to optimize it for Lottie, basically reduce its size, we would use this option. Normally, when you just created an extrudalized shape, your layer controller is connected to all the parameters in the shape. There are numerous expressions that are not needed for export once you have finalized your animation. There are perhaps some shapes, some faces that are not always visible, and this can reduce the size if that is removed. So the optimization is a smart process which will determine whether any of the shapes or paths can be removed, if any of the expressions are used or unused, and it will remove that. So when we click the optimization button, we need to of course select the layer. So let's select the layer and click the optimization button. So here it tells us that we can set the step value. We can basically check every 1 frame or every 2 frames or every 5 frames. And what this will do is we'll check if any changes in position or any parameter occur during that time interval. And if there are changes, then it leaves the expressions or properties alone. And if there are no changes, then it can remove it, thereby reducing the size of your final Lottie. So obviously, smaller number, like 1 or 2, means it will check every 1 or 2 frames, and that means the process will take longer, while checking every 10th frame will be faster, but you're taking the risk that if in that gap of 10 frames something happened, it will be missed, so your animation potentially will become less accurate. So in order to do it, let's do it at 3 frames and click Optimize for Lottie. Here, so now we can see a little report where we removed 23 unused expressions and 2 vector groups. And now this animation is ready for export. After the optimization process, some of the appearance properties in the layer controller might no longer work as intended because the corresponding expressions have been removed. Now let's undo this and check out some more options. Now, if you would like to have individual control of the color of every side, you can use this button. it will create individual controllers for every side and their colors. And if you click it, and it creates randomized colors. So if you will click it again, it will change the colors. Now the baking option, this is going to record all the relevant keyframes for the animated properties. It is used if you'd like to export this animation for use in iOS or Android applications, because they do not work with any expressions written in JavaScript. So inside the bake functionality, we have the same step value that we can set up for checking every number of frames. However, it is important to note, for baking, every path property is going to be always baked at 1 frame interval, because otherwise it will not work. One of the most exciting features of Extrudalizer is the ability to map artwork to the front or the back or both faces of the extrudalized shape. So let's go over this functionality. We select the extrudalized shape layer that we want to map artwork to and click Map Art. This dialog that opens up provides you several options. Here it populates with extrudalized layers. If there is one, it's just one. If there are more, you can pick one of them, and then you can determine whether you want artwork mapped to the front or the back or both of the faces. This option determines whether you want the artwork mapping to be Lottie compatible or not, and I will explain what is the difference. If it is not Lottie compatible, you can use anything as the artwork. You can use a video, you can use another pre-composition, you can use an image, whatever you'd like. And for Lottie compatible artwork mapping, your artwork has to be vector artwork. So let's first go over the non-Lottie compatible artwork mapping. So we click Proceed, and 2 pre-compositions are created. Those pre-compositions are the ones that will contain the artwork for the front and the back. And here it has basically a template image of what the artwork will look like. So if we go inside the pre-composition, here it is perfectly sized like this, and we, let's say, want to add a video. We'll drop a video in here. Let's size it. This is a somewhat larger video. And then let's use this layer, the one that we saw before, the white square, as a matte for the video. So in order to do this, we just need to turn up the opacity and set it to matte. Perfect. And let's do the same for the back. Great. So now, here it is. So in order to activate it, we click this checkbox. And this was for the back, and the back is invisible. Now let's do it for the front. Bam. So now we have artwork mapped to the front of the layer. So now if we rotate it, it rotates with it. And there's the one in the back. And if we scale it, it scales with it. And as you can see, the video plays back. Everything works as intended. So now let's get to mapping artwork for Lottie. So let's remove those layers. And now let's get to mapping artwork for Lottie compatible output. We select the extrudalized shape layer, click Map Art, check the Lottie box, select, let's say, front and back, and click proceed. As you can see here, we have two new shape layers, front and back. So we need to place the vector artwork inside those shape layers. So for example, let's hide this for now. I'm going to have my beautiful vector artwork of a polystar. Let's fix this. And it's going to be red, and then I'm going to have another square that is going to be, let's say, not red but purple, and then I'm going to have a circle that's going to be not purple but let's say yellow, and then I also even want to have them animate. So let's keyframe the position here, the position here. Let's go forward 1 second, and then let's move this here, and this here, and this here. And then let's add a loop out expression, loop out ping pong, so it goes back and forth. Okay, so now the shapes are going to go like this and like this. So perfect. Now this is my artwork, and let's group it to be inside one shape group. Let's call it vector artwork, and let's copy it. Let's put this now in front. Select the front. We go into contents. As you can see, there is artwork wrapper. So we go inside and paste our vector artwork. And we need to position it so it's placed inside this blue or this white square. So not here, but inside this white square. This is the bounds. This is a template for where the artwork should be placed. All right? So this is good. I like it. Now let's do the same for the back. We don't see it at this time because it's behind. But let's place the artwork the same way. There it is. All right. Now, just like with regular artwork mapping, we need to enable it. And it will then be mapped to the face. Let's map for the front. Here we are. And if we do not want the artwork to go beyond the bounds of the face, we enable the mask. And then it's cut off. There we are. And this origin, path, and stroke, they're there only as guides. So you can either hide them or delete them. Either way works. And now, as you can see, this artwork plays back, and it is transformed when we move our shape. And here's our other artwork, which likewise works. And this is all Lottie compatible. Just export and it's gonna work.